I used to believe my life was perfect. A white painted house with ivy crawling up the fence, a husband who brought me coffee in bed, and a job that never asked too much of me. We were that couple, the kind that gets framed on greeting cards, the ones people envy quietly. I had a good life, or at least I told myself I did. I met James when I was 24. He was charming in the way that only older men could be. Confident, grounded. He owned his own construction business, drove a silver Audi, and smelled like cedar and something masculine I still can't name. I was still figuring myself out, working as a junior copy editor, waiting tables on weekends. He made me feel like I was already someone. We met at a bakery downtown. We both reached for the last almond croissant. I offered it to him. He insisted I take it. We laughed, talked, and by the time we finished our lattes, I'd agreed to see him again. 5 years later, we were married in a small vineyard with string lights, white chairs, and not a single person sitting on the bride's side who doubted I'd made the right choice. Our early marriage was soft around the edges. We were affectionate. We laughed a lot. He made spreadsheets for vacation plans. I left little notes in his lunch bag. It was easy, familiar. But the truth is, something subtle began to change after year 4. He still kissed me goodbye every morning, but it was on autopilot. Our conversations thinned. Dinners became quiet. Sex turned into something scheduled, like paying bills or vacuuming the rug. I figured that was normal. Passion fades, right? You settle. Wait. You hold on to what you have. But I started to miss something. Something I couldn't name. Then came Gabriella. She was a recommendation. Our previous cleaner had moved back to Chicago, and with James working longer hours and my freelance deadlines piling up, I finally admitted we needed help. A friend gave me her number and said, "She's the best I've ever hired. Just a warning, she's stunning." That was the first word anyone ever used to describe Gabriella. Stunning. And she was. She showed up one Thursday morning in dark jeans, a tucked-in linen shirt, her wavy brunette hair tied half up, and eyes the shade of deep jade. Her presence was gentle, not flirty, not forceful, just aware. The kind of presence that makes you sit up straighter without realizing why. We didn't speak much that first day. She was efficient, professional, quiet. But I caught myself watching her. The way she moved from room to room like she belonged there. Like she'd always been part of this house. The second time we talked, small things. The weather. Candle I had burning. She complimented the scent. Said it reminded her of her grandmother's kitchen. Smiled. Told her I bought it for the same reason. Something about Gabriella made me want to linger in the hallway a bit longer. Sit down when she was in the room. Ask about her day. It was innocent at first. But that's how it always begins, doesn't it? Week by week, her presence grew. She'd leave a fresh vase of wildflowers from her walk over. Bring handmade soaps she said she picked up from a friend's market stall. One day I offhandedly mentioned a migraine, and the next week she handed me a tiny jar of eucalyptus balm. "Rub it behind your ears," she said. "It helps." It wasn't just the things she brought. It was the way she looked at me. Like she saw something beneath the shell I wore every day. James didn't notice when I cut my hair. Gabriella noticed when I changed my earrings. She laughed at my terrible jokes. She asked follow-up questions when I talked about my work. When I played music while cooking, she guessed the artist and danced a little while wiping down the counters. I started humming again when I cooked. I hadn't done that in years. Then one evening, she stayed later than usual. A storm had rolled in. Power lines snapped somewhere down the road, and the house went dark. I lit candles. She offered to help finish folding the laundry. We sat on the carpet with a pile of warm towels between us. Something about the way the shadows danced across her face made me forget we were sitting on the floor in silence. "I used to be scared of the dark," she said. "Me too," I replied. "Still am sometimes." She smiled. "It's easier when someone else is there." I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Nothing happened. Nothing needed to. But something shifted. That night after she left, I lay in bed next to James. His back already turned, his breathing even, and I thought about her. About her eyes in the candlelight. About her fingers brushing mine when she handed me a towel. And I felt awake, alive, like someone had touched a part of me that had been sleeping. The next morning I told myself it was nothing. But I wore my nicer blouse that day. After that night everything changed, even if no one said anything. Gabriella still came twice a week, still worked with the same quiet grace, still wore those same soft jeans and cotton shirts that clung gently to her waist. But I saw it now. Every movement, every glance. I felt it like a pulse under my skin. It wasn't just her. It was me. I was shifting. I started waking earlier on days she came. I'd make myself look presentable. Not in an obvious way, not like makeup and perfume, but just better. Softer sweaters, earrings, lip balm with a hint of tint. I told myself it was for me, that I just needed to feel good again. But it wasn't for me. Not entirely. James noticed, in his own way. One night he looked at me across the dinner table and said, "You've been humming again lately. That's good." He nodded, forced a smile, took another bite of salmon and changed the subject. The truth is, I didn't know how to talk to him anymore. Not about this. Not about Gabriella. Not even about us. There was a day, mid-September, still warm, when Gabriella finished early and sat down with me in the backyard. We had lemonade. I offered it out of politeness. She stayed because I think we both wanted her to. The sun was dipping low, golden light filtering through the trees, and she looked so calm, so real. Not like a fantasy, not like temptation. Just a person who made my chest ache when she looked at me. "You seem sad lately," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I stared into my glass, the ice spinning slowly. Not sad, just restless. "That's worse," she said gently. I turned to her then. She was already watching me. Not in a way that demanded anything, just waiting. And I wanted to tell her everything. How I used to lie in bed beside my husband and wonder what it would feel like to be touched by someone who saw me. Really saw me. How I used to be the woman who laughed easily, who danced in the kitchen barefoot, who kissed like it mattered. How I missed myself more than I missed anything else. But I didn't say any of that. I just said, "Thank you for sitting with me." Gabriella smiled. Anytime. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was full. Heavy with things neither of us dared name yet. But still nothing had happened. Not really. Until the following Thursday. James had a work dinner. Some fundraiser for a local build. He kissed my cheek, told me not to wait up. I nodded, already checking the clock, already counting the minutes until Gabriella would arrive. When she did, the rain had already started. Not heavy, just a soft, steady tap that made the windows fog. She was wearing a light hoodie and her hair was damp, curling around her cheeks in soft waves. "I brought you something," she said as she slipped off her shoes. She held out a paperback book, well worn at the edges. "You said last week you missed reading, so this is one of my favorites." I stared at it like it was a live thing in my hands. I couldn't even remember the last time James bought me something just because. Gabriella had remembered a passing comment. "You didn't have to," I whispered. "I wanted to," she replied. And something broke inside me then. Some dam I'd been patching with routine and polite conversation. We ended up sitting on the couch. Reading. Talking. Laughing. The kind of laughter that only comes when your guard is finally down. When you stop pretending. At one point she reached for her tea, and her hand brushed mine. Neither of us pulled away. The room went quiet. The rain softened. My heart thundered. "Can I ask you something?" she said. He nodded. "Why do you look away when I look at you?" My breath caught. I didn't answer right away. I didn't know how. Instead I said, "Because I'm scared of what you'll see." She didn't hesitate. "I already see it." And then she leaned in. I should have stopped it. Every part of my rational mind screamed at me to get up, to step back, to say something. Anything that would shatter the spell. But I didn't. I let her lips find mine, soft and warm and hesitant, like a question she already knew the answer to. The kiss was slow, not rushed, not demanding, but it wrecked me. When it ended, I didn't move. I didn't speak. Gabriella touched my cheek, her fingers trembling. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "No," I breathed, my voice shaking. "Don't be." She left a few minutes later, and I stood at the door long after it clicked shut behind her. Heart pounding, skin still burning. James came home 2 hours later. He was smiling, humming a tune from the restaurant. He brought leftover dessert. He handed me a chocolate tart and kissed my cheek. "You look flushed," he said. "I think I'm coming down with something," I lied. He nodded, told me to rest. But I didn't rest. I lay in bed with the taste of Gabriella still on my lips, the echo of her hands still on my skin. And for the first time since we said, "I do," I dreamt of someone else. Not just dreamt, longed. After that kiss, I told myself I'd set a boundary. I convinced myself it was a moment of weakness, a slip. I even whispered it aloud while brushing my teeth the next morning, like repetition would make it true. But deep down I didn't want it to be. I wore Gabriella's book cover down on my nightstand like a secret. James never asked about it. He never asked about anything anymore, really. He existed in parallel with me, close enough to share a space, but too far to see what was unfolding beneath the surface. Maybe he didn't want to know. Or maybe he trusted me so completely that the truth never crossed his mind. That hurt more than I expected. The days stretched long. Gabriella and I went back to our usual script. Polite smiles, casual conversation, not a word about what happened. But it lingered, heavy between us, coloring every glance, every brush of the hand, every pause before goodbye. I found myself inventing reasons to be near her. A drawer that needed organizing. A room to be re-cleaned. I'd sit at the kitchen island, pretending to scroll my phone while she vacuumed, just to watch the way she tucked her hair behind her ear. One afternoon, while she folded laundry, I caught her humming a tune I didn't recognize. "What is that?" "Yes." She looked up, startled, then smiled. "A song my mom used to sing. In Spanish. Means, your silence speaks louder than your lips." My breath caught. We didn't say anything else. We didn't have to. That night, I told James the first was tired. I curled up on my side of the bed, facing away from him. His arm wrapped around my waist like it always did. I didn't move. But I didn't feel it either. I was drifting from him and into something else. Something dangerous. A few weeks later, James announced he had a weekend conference in Denver. He'd be gone Friday to Sunday. I nodded like it didn't matter, but my heart beat faster. I didn't plan anything. I didn't call Gabriella. But part of me hoped, just hoped, she came that Saturday just like always. When I opened the door, the late afternoon sun slanted in through the hallway. Gabriella stepped inside, wind-blown and smiling. I stepped back, let her pass. We didn't touch. Didn't say anything more than hello. He cleaned, followed, quietly. And then, without a plan, we ended up in the guest room, sitting on the floor, backs against the wall, sipping tea in silence. She looked tired. Not physically, but like she'd been carrying something heavy. "Can I ask you something?" she said, staring at her cup. He nodded. "Do you feel guilty?" The question hit me in the chest. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I feel split. Like there's a version of me that wants to be the good wife. The woman who makes pasta from scratch and picks up dry cleaning and smiles when her husband kisses her cheek. And then there's this other version. The one who waits for you to arrive like she's counting breaths." Gabriella turned to me, her eyes soft. "I think both versions are real. Maybe you just stopped listening to one of them." There was silence again. Full aching silence. And then I leaned forward. Not because it was planned. Not because I knew what would happen. But because I couldn't not. She met me halfway. This kiss was different. Deeper. Hungrier. Like we were both tired of pretending it wasn't what we wanted. Her hands tangled in my hair. Mine gripped the back of her shirt like I was scared she'd vanish. clothes stayed on. But we fell into each other. When she left that evening, her fingers lingered against mine in the doorway. "I don't want to hurt you," she said softly. "You're the only thing that doesn't," I whispered. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed in a tangle of sheets and guilt, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in quiet circles. James texted me from his hotel. "Conference ran late. Love you." I didn't respond right away. The next morning I sent a reply. "Miss you. Hope it's going well." And then I sat in the shower, knees pulled to my chest, letting the water run hot over my skin until it turned pink. It wasn't just about Gabriella anymore. It was about me. About the version of myself I'd buried under routines and good intentions. And that version, she was clawing her way back to the surface. James came back from Denver with a tiny bottle of maple syrup from the hotel and a kiss that tasted like stale airport coffee. I took both and said thank you, smiled the way a good wife is supposed to, and tried not to think about how Gabriella had kissed me in the hallway just 2 days before. How her lips had trembled against mine, how we didn't speak after, just held each other like a storm had passed and neither of us knew what was next. But the storm hadn't passed. It was building. The tension, the secret, the ache. They were all growing louder. Every corner of the house whispered reminders. The hallway where our fingertips brushed. The couch where she first kissed me. The guest room where we held each other with too much tenderness and not enough logic. I started dreaming of her again. And this time they weren't sweet. They were sharp, frantic. Dreams of being caught. Of doors swinging open. Of James standing over us in stunned silence while Gabriella slipped her hand from mine and backed away into shadows. One morning, James watched me stir milk into my coffee and said, "You've been quiet lately." Froze. "Work's been a lot." He didn't press, just nodded and kissed my head. But his eyes lingered on me a little longer than usual. That evening, Gabriella didn't come. She texted, "Can't make it today. Sorry, something came up." I stared at the screen for a long time. The next few visits were different. She was distant, polite again. Not cold but cautious. Like she was trying to pull herself back. Stitch a boundary into the seams of what we'd undone. Hated it. One afternoon I finally asked, "Are you okay?" She looked up from the sink, her hands wet and trembling. "I can't keep doing this, Elena." It was the first time she'd said my name like that. Heavy, personal, like it meant something more than just a client. "I don't know who I'm becoming around you," she continued. "And I'm scared of what it means." I stepped closer. "It means we feel something. That's not wrong." "But it is," she said, eyes shining. "You're married." The words slammed between us like a gavel. Backed away. She finished her work in silence and left without saying goodbye. That night, I sat at the foot of our bed and stared at the framed wedding photo on the dresser. I looked so young in it. So certain. Like love was something simple and linear. Like vows could keep the cracks from forming. James was in the shower. I could hear the water running. I picked up the photo and turned it face down. The next morning I didn't brush my hair. I didn't put on my soft sweater. I didn't wait for Gabriella. I tried to go back. To routine. Normal. But normal had become a lie I didn't believe anymore. 2 weeks passed. Then one afternoon, when the sky outside looked like spilled ash and thunder rolled low across the horizon, I heard the doorbell. I opened it and there she was. Gabriella. Soaked from the rain, hair clinging to her cheeks, eyes darker than I remembered. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside without a word. She stood in the hallway, dripping, unsure. "I've tried to stay away," she said. "I thought it would get easier." "Did it?" "Yes." She shook her head. "No. It got worse." I moved closer. "Then why now?" "Because I need you to know. I love you." I stared at her, heart pounding. She said it like it wasn't a question. Like she'd already lived with the answer and needed to finally say it aloud. I walked toward her, each step louder than the rain outside. And then I kissed her. It was desperate, wet from the storm, messy, beautiful. When we broke apart, she held my face between her palms and whispered, "You don't have to choose tonight. But I can't be your secret anymore." She left me standing in the hallway, breathless. That night, James came home with Thai takeout. He set it on the counter and looked at me. "I saw her car," he said softly. I didn't deny it. Couldn't. He walked toward me. "Elena, is it true?" My eyes burned. My throat closed. "I didn't plan for it," I whispered. "But it's real." He said nothing. Just stood there, the man who gave me safety and comfort and predictability, looking at the woman who'd betrayed all of it. He walked out. And this time he didn't come back. The house feels different now. Quieter, better, but not empty. Gabriella and I didn't rush. We didn't move in together or post photos or try to fill the gaps with noise. We healed slowly, carefully. Some nights I still cry. Not out of regret, but for everything I lost. For who I used to be. For James, who didn't deserve this. But then Gabriella will take my hand, kiss my temple and whisper, "You're allowed to want more." And maybe that's the hardest part. Not the falling, but allowing yourself to believe you deserve the landing.